I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for painting and shading your spring truck door hanger. I've already pre-painted some of these pieces just so the tutorial goes a little bit faster. So if you have any questions or feel like I've skipped a step, please reach out to me. You're gonna see me pause quite a bit throughout this video. I'm going to, if it's just a solid color, I'll pause and paint that off camera and then come back when it's time for shading. So if you're following the written instructions, the first thing I did was I painted the yellow pieces, which would be this P, the bird beak, and these 3 tulips. Then I went to blue, which was the bird wing, hello, and the R. Then we are on the step to paint the white pieces. So you're gonna paint your truck. I don't know what these car pieces are called. I think I called these fenders, this a running board. I didn't know what they were. And then the outer hubcap / tire ring, whatever you wanna call it. So I went ahead and did 2 different coats on these, so they are good to go. For the truck, I posted in the directions, you don't need to paint inside of these etched lines just because it's going to be covered. So that will save you some time there. Once you are finished with your white color, first of all, obviously you need some cardboard. You can use the box. If you had multiple kits or your boxes were shipped, it came inside of a box. So you can tear off a piece of that, or this is just a piece of an Amazon box that I used. Okay, so once we are done with that, you are going to take the wedge that you just finished with, and I'm going to dab off most of that white paint onto the side because I'm going to take these yellow tulips and I'm just going to shade them just a little bit on the edges. So I want most of that paint off because I don't want this big solid piece of white. And I'm just going to very lightly dab along the top and around the edges of that. Yours won't have the stems painted yet. I pre-painted that off camera, so don't worry about that. Okay, so I'm gonna move that to the side. Then you're gonna take the same wedge and you're gonna get your mint color. And I shaded around the truck edges and all of the pieces with this mint color. So I'm just gonna take the edge of my wedge, put mint, and then dab, kind of rainbow it around to kind of blend it. And then I'm going to lightly go around the edges of my truck. Just to kind of give it a little more detail so it's not just one solid color. As you can see, as the mint is wearing off, do the same thing. Dip into that same corner, rainbow it out. And shade down. You could even do around the window if you would like. And down the seam. Let me set this aside. And I'm going to do that to each of these pieces as well. If there was a different color that you wanted to highlight or make your, basically highlight your truck pieces with, you can do that instead of the mint color. Okay, I'm going to finish this off camera because I think you understand the concept for the mint. And then I'm going to paint with the new wedge. I'm gonna go to the mint pieces. which would be these stems, the G, and this tulip stem. Then I'm gonna go to the light pink, and I will do that on camera simply because then we go into shading some more. Okay, I put 2 coats on the stem for this tulip, for your little tulip, and for the G. And then I went ahead and painted these pieces the lightest pink with my butterfly. So when if you're planning on painting the body black, you can go ahead and paint the whole thing the light pink if you want it to just have one color. You can either use your mini paintbrush that you come with to paint the details. I like to use a black marker instead. It makes it so much easier. You can use like a Crayola marker. Fine tip is best. There's a Sharpie that I use, or I've even used, I don't see it, I don't know where I set it. I've even used a dry erase black marker, which works just as fine when I couldn't find my Sharpie. So if you plan on using a marker, you do not want to put paint on there because it's not gonna stick. So if you plan on painting it with actual paint, go ahead, and you don't have to be careful, but I just used the edge of my wedge and just kind of outlined the butterfly body. Okay, so after you are done with that, I'm gonna take this medium pink color, I think it's blush, and you're gonna take the same wedge with the light pink, and same thing you did with the mint, you are going to dip just the top half of that into that blush color, and then find all of this is dry. You don't wanna mix your wet paints, but I'm just going to rainbow back and forth until I start to see a nice blending happening. And then I'm going to take the part that has the darker pink, and I'm gonna start on the outer edges of the wing. And I'm just gonna lightly dab and start rainbowing that out so that it can start to blend down. I don't know if you can see, it's really, really subtle. So I'm going to add more of that darker pink on the same side of that wedge, rainbow it out again to blend it. And then repeat. Just back and forth. So the lighting is terrible right now, but can you see how it's basically just a super light pink in that middle, and then it goes to the darker. So once you're happy with the ombre of your butterfly, I'm not quite done because I'm going to do that super bright pink just on the very edges. So I'm setting that in the blush pile. So I'm gonna press pause, and I'm gonna do my coats of that blush color on the S, these 2 flowers, the remaining tulip buds, and then we'll come back when it's time to shade. Okay, once you're done with the blush colors, I just wanted to point out with these 2 flowers, you are totally fine you don't have to go around the middle parts because we are putting a glob of paint in the middle to paint these later. So it will be easily covered. Also, just a tip, when you are painting the tulips, I like to pinch the edges of my wedge so it kind of makes this round shape, and then I just use the very edges and slowly go around that etch mark so that it just makes it a little bit easier to paint. Okay, keep the wedge that you just used with the blush, and then you're gonna take this super bright pink color. I'm gonna put it over here. And I'm just gonna take the end of that, and then I'm going to start rainbowing it out until it's blended. And then I'm going to just paint the edges of this tulip. Very, very lightly dabbing. And I'm keeping my wedge slightly raised so that I'm not depositing pink color onto the stem. Keep dabbing until you're happy with the amount of blending. So that's what that one looks like. And then let's do the tips of these flowers. Just go around. If you have, let me see, if you have tweezers, either the sharp ones or these blue ones, it does help to hold while you go around the edges of this flower. Okay, I'm gonna put this over in the, it's not quite finished pile, so that we remember to do that middle. A lot of back and forth movement just to shade. So there's that flower. And now let's do these tulips. So I'm gonna dip into that pink paint, rainbow it out. And then I'm gonna be really careful as I'm going around because I don't want any of this pink to get onto that yellow tulip. I'm gonna pinch that a little bit. Repeat on the second one. Once I get to this edge, I just kind of wipe the edge very, very lightly along. And then I'm gonna kind of tap it with the lighter color of pink just to kind of blend it a little bit better. Okay, so I'm happy with the look of that. And then let's finish off with the very tips of our butterfly wing. You can go back and add as much paint as you want. You can reload the blush color on the bottom if you're feeling like the bright pink is way too prominent. Just keep going back and forth and it'll blend out. Okay, our next color is gray. I'm gonna press pause while I paint that. You are going to paint, these are the inner circles for your tire ring, the gate, the window, the door handle, and then don't forget, you can either paint these gray or black. I think I did gray. This front etching of the bumper and the back one. So I'm gonna do that and then we'll come back when it's time for the black color. After you paint your gray pieces, it is time for black. So I've already done 2 coats on the tires. I just went around that outer etching. And then I also painted the holes on the backer. If you want them to blend into your sign, you can also paint them white if you prefer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the gray pieces as well as the bird, the wing, and the hello. I'm gonna take the wedge that had the black paint on it and I'm going to remove most of that black paint. Black is a super harsh color and it deposits a lot right away. So I wanna make sure that most of that is gone. And then let's go ahead and start. I'm gonna start with the gate. I am just gonna shade the very top portion and I'm very, very lightly dabbing. Just to give it a little bit of extra detail. And then I'm going to shade the outer part of the window. And then I'll do the same with the tire rings. And then just the very top part of the door handle. Just like that. Okay, now for the bird. I am going to shade just the bottom part of that wing. And again, I'm very, very lightly tapping. Start on the tail feathers for the bird. And then the top of his head. And then his belly. If you completely run out of paint, you can go ahead and reload, but then tap several times so that you get most of that off. I'm just going with what is left over. I'm gonna set him aside because we're going to fill his eye in a little bit. And now I'm going to just shade the top down kind of ombre black on top of this. So I'm gonna start with the H and the L's and then slowly kind of move my way down and tap even lighter as I'm heading down. And then I'm gonna do these sides. Just so it looks like that. I'm gonna set this aside and now we're gonna go to the details. So first, you can either take the back end of your mini paintbrush, it's gonna work the same as this, or if you have a dotting tool, I have linked these a few times on the Facebook page if you need them again and you're interested. If you do a lot of crafts, I really like having these, but the back end of your paintbrush will do the same thing. First, oh, I have a little bit of black paint left. I'm just gonna dip the end into that black paint and then just dot his eye and then set him aside, because when you place a glob of paint, it takes a little bit longer to dry. So you want to set it aside to make sure that you don't smear that. And then for the yellow, for the middle of these flower stems, it's the same thing, except for you just need a bigger glob of paint. So I start by placing it in the middle and then slowly circling my way out until I get towards that outer perimeter. And if you need more paint, then just dab again. And same thing, I start in the middle and circle that out. I kind of tap it a few times just to settle the paint and set that aside. You can use the tweezers to help hold too. Sometimes I accidentally shoot the pieces across though, so I'm just using my finger to hold it down. And then the last detail before I let these dry is coloring this butterfly. So again, you can use a mini paintbrush to paint. But I find it much easier to control a marker. Okay, I'm gonna let all my pieces completely dry and then we'll come back when it's time to put everything together and add detail work. Okay, when everything is dry and you're ready to put things together, I highly recommend only placing one piece at a time. If you peel all of your pieces, it's so easy to get them stuck together, get things stuck on them, and it can be really frustrating. I pre-peeled my pieces just so you don't have to sit here and watch me peel, but I just wanted to say I recommend doing one at a time. So the first thing we're gonna place is the truck onto the backer. So let's start peeling this off. And so I'm not going to press down until I'm ready. So I'm going to match up the edges of the bumpers and then make sure that it matches with the edges of the tire, and then finally with the top. And then when I'm happy with it, then I start pressing down. I'm gonna stand up because since this is such a large piece, I wanna make sure that it sticks really well. Okay, now we'll place our window. I love seeing this come together because it looks kind of rough at first, but then as you start putting each piece on, oh, I love it. Okay, match up the tulips to that backer and then press down. Make sure you press everywhere, especially if you're hanging this outside where the temperature fluctuates a lot. You want to make sure that it sticks really well. And then let's go with the fenders. So I'm just making sure that they match the edges and the bottom. And this one. And we do the running board. I'm going to follow the etching for trying not to put my head close so that you can still see. I want to make sure that I get the etching covered. Okay. If you need to press pause at any time, feel free to do that. So for the gate, what I did is I matched the side up with this cut, and then I matched this bottom, well, the top part of the bottom gate with this line. So I need to lift mine up so I can make sure that I'm doing that. So just like that. I'll put my butterfly right, let's put him right here. And then the hello, I want to make sure that I get the etching covered. So I basically hold down one side, and then that gives me the freedom to move it to make sure that everything is covered before pressing down and making it permanent. The black part of the handle I had on the top. And I'm not going to press any of these letters down too firmly until I place all of them to make sure that I like how it looks. See if I need to make any adjustments. And then just a few more pieces. We're gonna do our bird, and I'm gonna just set him. I'm gonna set him a little bit over. I don't want his yellow beak covering the yellow flower because then it blends in a little bit. And then we have these two flowers. I didn't peel those yet because they weren't quite dry. That one right there. And you can put these anywhere you want. Okay, now for some details. You can leave this how it is, just like that, and it looks great. Or you can add a little bit of detail work. So I like to use paint pens and Sharpies and things to make my swipes. You can also use your detail brush to do that. This just makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do a swipe down the tiger. I need to reload this. This has been going so strong for so long, it's probably time for me to replace it. Do both of the tires. I'm gonna go ahead and do a swipe along each petal. Just swipe down the tulips. Wing, and we'll do this guy. Oh, and then I usually do the butterfly wings. Okay. Then everywhere that I put a swipe, I'm going to use my dotting tool. You can use the back end of your mini paintbrush, and I'm just going to add some dots. If you do this portion, you want to make sure that you keep your hands lifted because it takes a while for these dots to dry, and you can smear them, and it's really frustrating when that happens. Speaking from experience. And then let's do the tulips. The bird. I should have done my bird last. Now I'm having to pay extra attention. Work from left to right. And you can add more, you can add less. It's totally up to you. Oh, I smeared that guy. That's okay. I kind of just smashed it. I didn't smear it, thankfully. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do, I wonder if my dry erase marker will work on the paint. I'm actually gonna push pause and let the white dry, and then I'll come back and do a couple black swipes on the defenders. Okay, I just finished up by using a Sharpie to swipe these black marks and putting dots. You can use any color you want. You don't have to use the black. But now I'm gonna show you how to splatter if you like that look to finish off your piece. Once everything is dry, I'm gonna take the white paint. The best way to splatter is to add a tiny, I'm talking like a drop or two of water to kind of thin it out, but you don't want it too thin. Otherwise, it's just gonna make a huge mess. So if you're not super comfortable with that, You can always just dampen the bristles of your paintbrush, and that will help. So it's not globs that are coming out and it's true splatters. So all I'm gonna do is I'm going to barely dip the ends of my paintbrush into that white paint. And I'm gonna set this to the side. And then off on the side, I always flick it a couple times just to get the bigger globs off. And then I'm just going to start flicking over my piece. And it's this movement over and over. So I start a little bit higher off of my piece, and then as I can tell that the paint is thinning, or I guess just already getting off the brush, then I start to move a little bit closer to get the rest of those splatters out. And you can do as little or as much as you want. As it dries, it does lighten up. So you can also just kind of wait and see what the end result is. And then if you want to add more, go for it. I should say, always lay down a disposable tablecloth or do this outside because it is messy, as you can tell. And that's it. So I'm gonna let this completely dry, then you string the twine through the holes and you hang it up and you're done. Please let me know if you have any questions.